Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishing professional development books and resources to support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Have you checked out their latest releases? Use the code JCTTR2324 for 20% off your order. Don't miss out. Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading. Bet UK is empowering the everyday wins, cheeky grins, big conversations, budding aspirations. Our goal? To make EdTech accessible and teaching exceptional. Join the global education community on the 24th to the 26th of January 2024 as we make education better together. Visit www.uk.betshow.com/visitor-registration.
Good evening, or good afternoon, I should say, and welcome to Teachers Talk Radio. This is the first show of our 4-show festive schedule. It is the 27th of December, which I'm reliably informed is a Wednesday for those of you who might have forgotten. And joining us as hosts tonight for our international special, we have the host of Christmas Past, Daisy Turner, and the host of Christmas Present, Lucy Newberger. Now, if you would like to be the host of Christmas Yet to Come, you can apply to be a host on Teachers Talk Radio. All you have to do is drop us a DM at TT Radio Official or drop us an email at info@ttradio.org. But without further ado, I will hand over to Lucy, who I think enjoyed that one. Lucy, over to you.
I've been waiting all day for that, Mr. Thomas Hopkinsberg, and I appreciated it enormously, as I'm sure Daisy did as well. Good evening, EduFolk. How are we doing this evening? I hope you are all well and suitably full of food and all the other stuff. Good evening to you, Daisy. How are you doing?
Good evening. Yeah, good. It's been a manic few days, but yeah, enjoying the rest.
Oh my gosh. And where in the world are you currently?
Yeah, so I'm back in Wales for my Christmas, but yeah, I'm only back for 2 weeks and then back to Saudi for work.
Oh wow. So only the 2 weeks. I only committed to a week actually in the end, but I have far to travel between Portugal and here, and I've also already squeezed in a trip to Copenhagen as well. So I feel like I've done well this Christmas.
Yeah, you've made the most of that, haven't you?
So it's been really good. Yeah. So I think we should probably explain a bit more as to why we're here, what we're doing, and explain proceedings for this evening, really.
Yeah, so the idea for the space was came from the fact that I'd had quite a few messages just asking, random questions about getting into international teaching. Do I regret it? How do you go about it? How did I choose Saudi? And all of these things. And I just thought, I think it would be a really good idea to get a bunch of international teachers together and invite those that are thinking about it and really just sort of hash it out from a bunch of different perspectives and what do you need to know and any hints and tips and things like that, really just giving people a bit more of an idea of what it entails.
Oh, most definitely, because it's around this sort of time of year and going into January that certainly my school asks what my intentions are, whether we're moving on, but also a lot of jobs are going up on TES and the like as well. So if you are considering or on the market for a new job or indeed a job abroad, it's kind of now's the time, really, isn't it? It's sort of when I see various things going up, and I do like to have a nosy as well. I do like to have a look and see what's happening and what's out there. And I'm hoping there's a couple of our various international colleagues are going to join us throughout this show this evening who are based far and wide. So they'll be joining us soon. I can
Yeah.
see that a few people are already keen and eagerly listening to what we have to say. So I suppose we should maybe start off with kind of condensed. I'm going to try and condense them. Sort of condensed versions of our own stories.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a good idea. So I taught in Wales for 7 years, and then in September 2022, last year, I moved to Saudi Arabia, on a bit of a random whim, really. And I'm the head of science there, and have been there now. Obviously, this is my second year. So yeah, I'd only ever taught in the one school beforehand, and then made the leap over into international teaching and into the Middle East. What's your story? Where have you been?
So my was that your first international job that you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I sort of I was about 4 years in the UK, and actually it was kind of during lockdown. I was just in the throes of finishing a maternity contract, and I was I was underwhelmed with the prospect of continuing in the UK, and of course, given, I mean, it was a difficult time then, and as we know that throughout this year, it's been a particularly difficult time with teaching in the UK, which is what I think will pique a lot of people's interest with this show this evening. Is that I think that there will be people who have just kind of had enough, if you like, and not just with the education system, but with systems in general. So I was living at home as a 30, how old ever I was at the time, 30, 31 years old. And I wanted out. I wanted to go. The time was up, and I was sort of looking at I was looking at kind of Spain and Portugal, because I knew I wanted to be somewhere warmer. I knew I wanted kind of the outdoor life, but I didn't really at the time want to kind of fling myself onto the other side of the world. Some people do, some people don't. And so I started applying. And I originally interviewed actually just as the world was shutting down, and sort of then kind of forgot about it. And then I got a phone call. No, I got an email sort of in September time saying, "Do you fancy a chat?" And I thought, well, head teachers never just fancy a chat, nor do they have
Mm.
time for a chat. And I think it was about a 15 minutes conversation, and I was offered a job, and I've been out there for nearly 3.5 years now. So it's been, yeah, been quite the adventure.
Yeah, so I think that like that leads us on like to a really good point about international teaching. Like certainly, and in terms of like the actual process, it can be a lot more laid back, a lot less formal
Yeah,
than in the UK. Like, so same with mine, really. Like, so I'd put a couple of feelers out with some recruiters, and I'd really said, like, I don't really care where I go. Similar to you, it was lockdown. I was like, oh, I'm done with this. And I'd been in leadership for 5 years at that point, and I'd done head of year and head of science. And I was like, I'm really done with the UK. And then yeah, I was the same. I got an email. Do you want to have have you got time for a Zoom call or a video call? Within 20 minutes, that was it. Job done. And I was going to Saudi Arabia. Um, but yeah, it can be a lot less formal. There's a lot less hoops to jump through, and
mm,
and you don't have this full day interview, which I know we've talked about on Teacher Talk Radio before,
yeah.
and you don't have any of that really. It's very kind of, your CV really speaks for itself, and then that sort of, as you say, informal but definitely not informal conversation can pretty much be the end of it, really.
And it is quite bizarre to take on a teaching job, as you say, having often, I mean, I couldn't at the time set foot in the school, never met any of the staff. I mean, it really is. There is kind of that aspect. I mean, now I think with places opening up again, you are able to, within reason, go and check some of these places out. But often, people take the leap without doing that, which is sort of saying that out loud now, given, yes, some of the interview processes I went through in the Ukraine. I mean, that's ludicrous, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like I'd never been to the country. I'd never been to the area. I'd never been to. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know the school. I'd seen pictures, but that, yeah, and you just sort of have to kind of take the leap. I do think that with, with things like Twitter and the internet, you can get a good feel for places with what people have said and things like that. But you are really taking a bit of a jump with international
Mm.
teaching that you're not doing in the UK, because you can go and have a walk around and things like that, and you can get a feel for it. And you can't really do that when you take an international job. You kind of just have to go with your gut, I guess.
Yeah, and on that note, a lot of these places kind of offer in taking that leap, they're taking it alongside you, because often a lot of them will say, oh, it's kind of, we want you to stay for a minimum of 2 years, because if we're going to kind of invest in sort of bringing you over, then we want you to kind of invest
Yeah.
back, sort of thing. That didn't happen so much with me and in Europe, but I know certainly in the sort of the UAE and places like that, they tend to, because it's, I suppose, that bit further afield. I don't know if that happened with you.
Yeah. So with Saudi, it was a minimum 2-year contract, with financial penalties if you left early.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because the financial penalty was simply that you had to repay back your visa fees and things like that. Because again, like I'm sure we'll come on to this, but the packages vary wildly.
For
Um,
sure.
and my package is, I have to say, incredibly comprehensive. I don't pay for anything. So the financial penalty if you broke contract was that you need to reimburse the school for the for the visa, and the in Saudi Arabia you have to have a certain level of health insurance and things like that. And yeah, that's just because it costs them a lot of money to get you out there, and all the paperwork, especially with a country like Saudi and things like that. So yeah, you can be tied in. I mean, you can leave, and I think that it's important to say that, like, a lot of these rules are, they're on paper, but if something was to happen, if there was a death in the family or anything like that, they are very lenient with them. And if you need to go home, you need to go home, and they're very understanding of that. But yeah, they do like an agreement that we'll pay for everything, but you need to sign for a year or two.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think there'll already be some people in the space who are nodding along to what we're saying. I can see Freya is in, she's currently in Vietnam. She was in Italy, and I actually met her earlier in the year in Rome, just as she was finishing up there. So good evening to you, Freya. I'm sure we'll hear from you if you're able to shortly. And I can see Zoe's here as well. Zoe, I believe, is in Monaco. I think I'm right in saying that. Your thumbs up will tell me differently in a moment if I'm wrong about that. But I can also see lots of others in who are listening as well. I can see Omar. I can see Josh Darlow's in. I can see, who else can I see? Mr. Green is in. I can see our very own Nathan is in, who always raises a smile. I can see Chris Sweetman's in. And then lots of others, and I think lots more will join us. But yes, I think that as you say, these packages can differ wildly, but also kind of going back even more of a step. I think that, I mean, when we sort of talk about our motivations for moving in the first place, we kind of almost with lockdown and everything else, it was I almost think that was probably one of my biggest kind of pushes. But also and I don't like to say this, but I was finding that, and again, I don't know if this was the case for you, that teaching in the UK was rapidly becoming sort of unsustainable for me.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm very open about it. I went to Saudi Arabia for the money. 100%. Like, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with saying that. Like, Saudi Arabia is not somewhere you go for the nightlife. It's not somewhere you go for 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 that side of things. And I think that just from an advice perspective, if you are thinking of going into international teaching and you're not sure where you want to go in the world, getting your why really
Yeah.
really secure is really important. Because if your plan is, right, I'm going to go and smash out 5 years, I'm going to save as much as I can, and then I'm going to bounce back into the UK, then that's going to give those countries that are going to enable you to do that are very different from the ones that are going to give you that, I want 5 years of major life experiences. They're going to be very different places. So I think that, like you say, I mean, lockdown was a big driver for a lot of people, just being sort of stuck and thinking, I'm really done with this. And I know that, like, the politics and everything was one of the big motivators for me. I was just sick of British sort of politics and the systems. And but I do also think that, you know, I picked Saudi because of that package, because of that money, and because of the life it could give me when I was ready to come back. Um, you know, whereas I've got friends who are in Dubai, and their day to day is far more exciting than mine, but their saving prospects is slightly less than what I can save because it's a much more expensive place. So I
Yeah.
think that, you know, getting your why and knowing what it is you want out of your time abroad, I think is an important one. I don't know how
Um,
you find that in Portugal.
well, would you, I mean, and do you, in your mind, I mean, Saudi's not the place you're going to ultimately live and retire in. Do you feel like, have you got a very clear kind of end point in mind, or is it sort of
Well, yeah,
negotiable?
yeah. I mean, I didn't. I do now, because I'm coming home to get married. So this is my last year.
Oh, wow.
Um, but even in, you know, but my original plan was 2 years in Saudi, see how I get on, and then but potentially to stay in Saudi for 5 years to save as much money as possible. Um, but yeah, I had quite a sort of fixed plan. Going abroad for me was not. It was never like, oh, I'm going and I'm not coming back. It was always a fixed point where I was going to go away for a bit, get a breather, and then come back.
Mm.
I don't know about you. Are you away for the long haul or?
See, I'm the complete, almost sort of the antithesis to you in a way, because my move wasn't motivated by money. It was very much motivated by a kind of entire lifestyle change. And as it stands, I have no intention of coming back.
Yeah,
But I think also that, I mean, I'm in one of the safest countries in Europe, and I imagine that the life I lead is completely polar opposite to the one you do. I
yeah,
mean, I kind of, I'm going for a run in, my little shorts and kind of having a very, very nice time, and sort
yeah.
of, I have maybe the freedom as a lone woman in Portugal that is not the same for you in somewhere like Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I mean, Saudi's definitely not what I expected. I mean, I definitely thought that I was going to have a much tougher time than I actually do. So the best way I can describe Saudi Arabia is you live in a holiday resort, basically. So you live in a walled-in compound. On that compound, there's a pool, there's a Starbucks, a shop, a laundrette, recreational centre. There's a gym, pool, indoor pool, sauna, that kind of thing. And then my school is attached to the side of the compound, so I just walk through the compound and into school. So you live a very sort of closed in, but a very, everything you need is sort of there. But it's essentially within like a, and when you're within the walls, you're fine. You wear whatever you want, your little shorts or whatever. But yeah, when you go out, that's when it becomes slightly different. And so yeah, you are living a much more reserved life, and a much more kind of, you tend to stay within the compound. Really, um, it's not as free. I don't think you'd feel quite as, you wouldn't feel the freedom quite like you do, I imagine, in Portugal, because it isn't the same as you come from a place in the UK where you just get in the car and just nip to the shops and do this and do
Mm,
that, and you don't do that in Saudi.
yeah.
You live a very sort of sheltered life, within the compound walls.
Yeah, I mean, it's privilege in a different sense, and I talk about this actually with my friends a lot, and people who I teach with, and other teachers. We do have, as women, we do have a particular, freedom in Europe. We can, we're not worrying about the same things, and we can kind of go and do as we please. We can kind of, and we're not really kind of thinking about our safety or what we're wearing or anything like that. I mean,
Yeah,
we've all had those questionable outfits, but it's not, you're not having to give it any major thought. And even, with the kind of being out at night and things like that, I mean, it's Lisbon is a European city. The nightlife's great. It's yeah, I mean, I live, yeah, a very kind of privileged existence in that sense, in the freedom sense.
yeah. So I mean, in Saudi, I mean, it's one of the safest countries in the world in regards to crime. As a lone woman, you can, as long as you're dressed properly, you can go out any time of day or night, and you will face no issue whatsoever. They won't even look at you. They won't talk to you or anything like that. It's beyond safe. It's far, like, I get into a taxi in Saudi as a lone woman, and I'm a lot safer than I am in the UK. And you go for a walk in the nighttime, no problem at all. And that's because their proportional punishment to their crime is very, very high. So they don't say what you will about crime and punishment, but they don't really have crime because of it. But it is a different world in the sense of, you have to think very carefully about what you're wearing. You have to think very carefully about the way that you speak, what you say and who you say it to. A lot of people can't get their heads around the fact that freedom of speech doesn't exist in Saudi Arabia, and freedom of sort of expression doesn't exist. So that goes as far as social media and things like that, and being very careful what you say and what you sort of say publicly. However, I sound like Saudi has got some big benefits. One, flat bang in the middle of the world. So if you want to travel, Saudi's 50-50 sort of in the middle between like Australia and the US. So you can get pretty much anywhere from Saudi in a relatively short time. And the money is, tax free. So, there's the salaries are very high because they know it's not a particularly desirable place. So they compensate you financially for that. And obviously that is then tax free as well. So if saving is the goal and money is the goal, then Saudi, is the place to be, really. And that's not the same for Dubai. The packages in Dubai now they've cottoned on to the fact that it is somewhere that the Brits want to go. So, you're never going to make the same kind of money. You're not going to save the same kind of, just to put it in perspective, I save 75% of my salary.
Wow.
I and that's at a push and I spend quite a lot of money. I know friends of mine who probably save 95% of their salary because all of our bills are included. We pay no living fees. The only thing you have to pay yourself while you're out there is your food and your phone. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah. So financially, if you've got debts, or if I've got a lot of friends in Saudi who had major sort of credit card debt and things like that, went over there and they've cleared that within a year. And now,
amazing.
and now they're saving for houses and things like that. So financially, it's a very strong contender if that's the goal.
Yeah. And whereas I would say that, I'm doing things, I mean, don't get me wrong, in Europe generally, things, so we are taxed. Portugal does have a very high tax rate, as do a lot of the European countries. But we have things like you get 14 months pay in 12 months, so twice a year you do get, in inverted commas, double pay. I mean, again, it's probably not clearing anything like what you are because the tax level is high, but we get our tax returns and things like that, so you can get quite a healthy tax return. But also, I mean, I don't know if you do this, but I tutor on the side, and I probably shouldn't say this too loudly, but let's just say that is pocket money.
Yeah, totally the same for me. So yeah, I mean, especially with the sort of view on education in the Middle East, they view it very highly. So again, going back to what we were saying about teaching being unsustainable in the UK, in the Gulf, you are seen as up there with doctors in terms of how valuable you are. And the parents are unbelievably grateful and just, kind and respectful, and they make their children the same way. So, they view you essentially as the gatekeeper for their child's future. So you do get a very kind of different experience, and especially with your private tutoring and your pocket money, you can make a lot of money doing that because they're willing to pay an awful lot for that kind of tutoring. And like I do the same thing. It's I hope Mr. Taxman's not listening, but I do the same thing. But it's definitely lucrative. And how do you find, like, compared to the UK, one of the things that I couldn't get over when I first went over there, I had like too much free time. Like,
I mean, certainly. Are you talking just generally, or in terms of the school day?
Like in terms of the school day, like I finish work at 2:15, and I've basically got, and because I don't have anywhere near the same kind of constraints as I had in the UK, like with marking and all that kind of thing, I basically have another 8 hours before I go to bed, where I'm like,
I mean,
oh.
That's mad. I mean, mine's not quite as good as that. I mean, we start at 9 and finish at 4. But having said that, I get I think it's maybe 8 hours. It might even be a bit more than that of planning time a week. Now, if you think about the UK, I mean, some teachers. I mean, I remember. I mean, mine was about 2 hours a week here
Mm.
because a lot of the because I know you're secondary, aren't you?
Yeah.
So it works slightly differently for you, but a lot of the subjects at school for me are taught by specialist teachers. So the this is going to sound mad, and I'm going to some people are going to gawp at this, but as a primary teacher in the UK, you are used to teaching the lot,
Yeah.
whether you're good at it or not, doesn't matter. It's in your remit. But I teach English, maths, topics, so that's kind of history, geography. PSHE, science, and that's pretty much it. Everything else is specialist taught.
Yeah.
So in
Yeah. So
terms of, so I will have at least one, in inverted commas, free period a day.
yeah. So as a secondary teacher, so in the UK, you normally get 10% PPA. So you get, if you teach 6 lessons a day, 5 days a week, you get 3 hours of planning time. In Saudi, out of a possible 29, the most any of my classroom teachers, because I get a bit more, but the most any of my classroom teachers teach is 22. So they get, they get 7 hours a week. So that's what, at least 1 lesson a day, if not 2 lessons,
Yeah.
3 a day. Me as a head of department, I only teach 18.
So
So
that's really good.
yeah, so I have a lot more. So I do not work outside of my working hours,
No,
apart
I don't either.
from if I'm making pretty resources for my A-level kids sometimes, and that's by choice. That's just because I think I see something on the news and I think, oh, I could make something out of that, and so I'll sit for an hour, because let's be honest, I'm absolutely dropping free time, because at 2:15 I take the 3-minute walk back to my apartment, and then I've got 8 hours until I go to bed. So I sometimes do a bit of work here and a bit of work there, but that's entirely by choice. It's not. And that was something that I found really hard when I first moved out there, because I was used to, I think I've spoken about this with one of the executive head teachers of the British School of Riyadh. We had the conversation of about, I think in the UK, we measure our value and our productivity on how busy we are.
Yeah.
Like, there's a huge thing that comes from, like, oh, if, oh, look how good I am. I've been really busy today. I've done this, and actually in international teaching, that's not the case. If I went into my group of friends and said, oh, I spent 17 hours working over the last weekend, they'd be like, weird.
Why? Yeah.
You don't get that kudos from it. And if I said it to my boss would be like my head of school, he'd be like, why? Like, it's not an expectation. And beyond that, it's also kind of frowned upon. Like, you're free, you moved out here to rest and to, and it's like, we don't in the international community, like especially in the Gulf, we don't measure how good your day's been by how busy you've been.
No,
It's
and I think someone who would agree with you, who I can see is in the space, is Dan Rosen, who's a head in Dusseldorf, who I've also had the pleasure of meeting this year when I did research ed in Dusseldorf. And I feel like, and I'm sure he'll thumbs up if he can, that his mentality is kind of very much sort of, I'm not here to work you into the ground, because what's the point?
yeah, my boss is very much along the lines of, if as long as the work gets done, meant brilliant. And as a head of department, I'm very like, I'm leaving at 2:15. I expect all of you to leave at 2:15. If you want to hang out for a little bit afterwards because you've got a bit of printing to do or whatever, no problem. But there is zero expectation for you to work in your own time. You're not paid for that. Don't and
No.
in no other profession, in no other world, would we work unpaid.
And actually, on that note, that's very interesting, because that never in the UK used to be part of my mentality. It just came with the job. But also, I was still
Yeah,
quite early in my career, so I wasn't quite as sort of bullshit, maybe a little bit belligerent about it as I am now. Whereas now, and those words have left my mouth, where I've been like, I'm not being paid to do this, therefore, I do, when I exit the building, my email goes off, because actually in Portugal it's illegal now to contact people outside of working hours. So I don't even have my email on my phone anymore, because what am I going to do about it? And I'm not paid to do anything about it until 8:30 the next morning, which
Yeah.
I know is quite, it sounds like quite an almost sort of what thing to say, and almost kind of, well, that's not really kind of how you should be operating, but
But
actually
I
yes
think
it
that
is.
I think we think that because British teachers are conditioned to, it's this thing that I absolutely hate of like, oh, it's a vocation, it's a calling. No, it's a job. And if you phoned the doctors out, if you phoned the receptionist outside of working hours and you said to the receptionist, "You make me an appointment," she'd go, "No, you have to phone up within working hours because I don't work within, I'm not just working all the time." And I say it all the time because I've got a lot of ECTs I've got 3 ECTs in my department.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, and I say it to them. I'm like, the minute that clock hits 2:15, you're not being paid. So you have to decide, am I happy to do this work unpaid, or am I leaving it till tomorrow when I'm being paid to do it? Because there's no expectation for you to work unpaid. That's crazy. You know, I mean, there are times of the year as secondary teachers when we expect to work a little bit more. Mock season, for example, exams, we expect to be pushed a little bit harder because we've got deadlines and we've got things to meet. But the average working day should start for us at 7 a.m., sorry, and finish at 2:15. That's it. And I have become far more militant about it and about the fact that, especially if you live on a compound. So if you are considering the Gulf and you are considering somewhere that has a compound, you have got to get some serious boundary work in place because you live with your colleagues and
Yeah.
you can end up sitting with a Starbucks working and you don't realize you're working until you get back and you go, we've just organized the school calendar for the next 6 months.
Yeah, I
Been
mean,
working.
it's slightly different for me in that I don't live on a compound, but I do live in very close proximity. Sort of Cascais, where I'm actually based, is a beach town. It's a tourist town. It's a holiday town, but also everyone, and lives within kind of 15-20, or most of us live within kind of 15-20 minutes of each other. And it's usually the time I'm usually caught is sitting kind of minding my own business in a beach bar, usually with kind of a bowl, I say a bowl of gin, but like a large gin and tonic in
Yeah,
hand, and suddenly you hear miss, and you just think,
yeah,
oh no, not now, please,
yeah,
not now. And that's quite interesting as well. But I just want to backtrack. There's so many things I want to kind of open
yeah.
up, and also and ask the audience as well. And I also want people to I should also say and stress that we are definitely taking questions, Daisy, aren't we? We're
Yeah.
kind of, so at any point please do interrupt us, because we have both already established that we can talk for Wales and England respectively. So you absolutely, please do interrupt us, please do ask questions. And also to international colleagues, you're going to get picked on, those of you that are in here. So please do be prepared to accept speaker requests from Mr. Tom Hopkins-Burke when he flings those out in the moment. But before we go on any further, I do have to remind you that, and Tom will love this, that this show is sponsored by John Catt Educational. Now, Christmas has, is kind of in the throes of passing, but we still do have a discount available, I believe, Tom. Yes, thumbs up if there is still a discount, which is JCTTR2324. So if you didn't quite manage to get your books together for Christmas, for that teacher in your life, or indeed for yourself, how about buying them as a New Year's resolution and finding something to read that is going to pique your educational interest? And you can find all manner of books available on the John Catt website. I believe there is also a pinned tweet at the top of the space. I think it should be there. Yes, I can see it. It's up there as well. So do go and check that out and see if you can find something for yourself to read going forward. Now, I want to kind of back up a little bit, because something that I wanted to kind of ask you, Daisy, about, and also ask our colleagues and friends who are in the space as well, those of you who are international teachers or indeed considering it. I found that the move itself and that the idea of moving was kind of quite easy from sort of initial thought to actual kind of fruition, as it were, because I was only thinking about myself. I realize I'm not kind of this sort of, I'm selfish, I'm belligerent, all of these things that I'm revealing in this space this evening. But this is the truth. I had to only think of me and moving me. And was it the same for you? Because I don't know what your situation is with your partner.
Yeah, no, it was just me. It was a bit more complicated. I had a house and a house worth of stuff
Yeah.
and all of that, but no, it was just me moving. Yeah.
Yeah, because I lived at home at the time, so I literally had to flog my car, and I packed kind of two kit bags, and that was it. And actually moving the kit, which wasn't actually that much stuff, cost me more than my actual flight ticket to Portugal. But yeah, a lot of my, I mean, I'm currently squatting at home for the Christmas period, and every time I come home, I realize that, you know, my extensive cookbook collection has been living rent free in my parents' house, along with a whole host of other nonsense that I have yet to
So,
get rid of.
in terms of your school, then, did they not move you?
Nope. So
Right. So,
this is another interesting thing with Europe in general. No, I had a housing allowance, but in terms of finding somewhere, that was down to me.
okay. So the difference then with the Gulf is, and this is the whole Gulf from the top in terms of Jordan, all the way down Saudi, Bahrain, Qatar, the Emirates, Oman, they will move you. Part of your part of the package will be that they will fly you out with your stuff. Now there's a cap on it usually. Um, my school, the cap is 80 kilo. Whether that's on the plane or whether you get that shipped over is up to you. But they will move you and your stuff, and then at the end of your contract, they will repatriate you as well.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so repatriation from the Gulf is the norm. That's what you can expect from any of the Gulf countries. And if it's not in the package, you make sure it is, because it's bloody expensive to try and move stuff.
Hmm.
Really expensive. So it's not like Europe, you know, you are talking long haul moving. So that can be quite difficult. But I was the same. I basically, you know, it was actually a really cathartic process. I sold and got rid of 10 years, because I hadn't lived at home since I was 18. So 10 years of accumulated tat I got rid of. I emptied my house of everything. I packed my life into 2 suitcases. And I think this is more than the international experience. I think that was the best thing I ever did. And I put a few of my things in the loft of my house. And then I rented my house out and I left. And
Oh.
yeah, I left with 2 suitcases, rented my house out, and just told the rentees that, listen, I've got a few boxes in the loft, you can use it, but please don't move my stuff. Um, and that was it. And I left with 2 suitcases. Um, and yeah, it was one of them. I mean, I'm kicking myself now because I'm moving back and I've got rid of all my stuff. but but it was so cathartic, like just getting rid of everything and just starting again.
Yeah.
It was
Well,
it
it's
was
it's it's
good.
yeah, it's a good thing. I mean, I think eventually my dad is going to just black plastic bag the lot, unless I get rid of it. But I'm clinging on for now. I can see. Oh, Dan Rosen was about to have a chat with us. I don't know what we said to. Hopefully, we can get him back, because it's something obviously piqued his interest. But yeah, I think because I know that we had a question on Twitter from, I think it was from Sam, who was asking about, you know, if you've got a lot of stuff you're attached to and kind of unable
Yeah.
to move it. I mean, I am fortunate in that I do have forgiving parents, probably too forgiving. So they, for now, my rubbish and nonsense is definitely taking up more room than it should. It won't forever. But I mean, your advice seems to be have a cathartic moment and just flog the lot.
Yeah, I definitely think I definitely think that it is an opportunity to get rid of a lot of stuff, especially if you're like me. I mean, I just hoard things. Um and that was very cathartic. But there's also a lot of really great storage places now, where you can just rent a very big locker essentially, and you can lock your stuff up in there, and it's tidy and clean, and it's not going to get damaged, and then you know you can get it back should you ever want to. And I've got friends that have done that have got large storage lockers in the UK, and depending on where you're going financially, it shouldn't be a problem. You know, if you go into the Gulf, then financially that shouldn't be an issue, to pay for storage. But yeah, it again, it's such a difference between Europe and sort of further afield, because further afield you could take a lot of your stuff with you if you wanted to. 80 kilos, 100 kilos worth of stuff you could take with you if you wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly could, and with considering that I'm probably going to, I mean, I have no intention of coming back anytime soon. I think I'll gradually start to kind of move more of my stuff out, but I'm also that person that every time I come home, I don't check a bag. I literally, kind of pretty much. I mean, not quite just coming back in the stuff that I'm wearing, but it's hand luggage only.
Yeah, yeah. Now that because I'm back in my house now. My partner lives here, and obviously we're getting ready to sort of move back in together. But yeah, I can come back with just hand luggage now. But previously I was staying in hotels or at friends' houses, and that's difficult. I think that yeah, I definitely think that it's more of a nomadic life, isn't it? I think that
Yeah.
it can feel very different in the sense of, like, Saudi would never feel like home,
Mm.
but then for a time I didn't have a home here either. So
Yeah,
it
it's a
can feel,
weird.
yeah, it can feel like you're a bit of a sort of wanderer.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I know I'm hoping that Freya, I don't know if you are able to come and have a chat, but because she went from Rome to I don't know.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishing professional development books and resources to support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Have you checked out their latest releases? Use the code JCTTR2324 for 20% off your order. Don't miss out. Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading. Bet UK is empowering the everyday wins, cheeky grins, big conversations, budding aspirations. Our goal? To make EdTech accessible and teaching exceptional. Join the global education community on the 24th to the 26th of January 2024 as we make education better together. Visit www.uk.betshow.com/visitor-registration.
Where she is in Vietnam. I think it's Hanoi. She'll give me a thumbs up in a minute, hopefully, if she's there. But I don't quite know how she managed to move from there to there, or whether she kind of did UK in between or not. I can't quite. She did tell me, but I can't quite remember, because it can be, particularly if you're going from international job to international job, that's quite a headache as well.
yeah, it can be, and I think that just also circling back because we are jumping around a little, but one of the things that I think can be really difficult is the paperwork when you're moving,
Yeah.
and that can feel quite overwhelming. And how did it work for you in Portugal, in the sense of, did they do all your paperwork for you, like your visa
So
stuff?
the kind of life admin stuff, well, I'm fortunate in that, and this is another thing that we may or may not come back to with the whole Brexit thing and working
Mm,
in Europe. I'm fortunate in that I have two passports. I have my German and I have my British.
okay.
So setting up in terms of kind of residency was quite easy for me under the EU passport. But in terms of kind of life admin, bank accounts,
Mm,
health insurance, all of that, I had someone come with me and help set all that up through school, because of
yeah,
the language barrier. There was no way that I
yeah.
could have done that myself.
Yeah. So in the Gulf, obviously, Saudi residency is very, very difficult to get, and they do not give out residency very easily. But my school was amazing. Like, my school did all of it, and I just had to sort of rock up to a hospital on Harley Street in London and go and get a medical, and then I had to rock up at the Saudi embassy and take copies of my passport and my attested degrees and things like that. And then they did all of it. They had a broker, basically, who just managed between, was the go between me and the Saudi embassy. And then, like you, when I got there, we went as a group, and the school organised a little minibus, and we went as a group of new starters and got bank accounts, and In Saudi, you have to have an Iqama, which is your residency pass, and all of this. And we just did all of that as a group, and the school facilitated all of it. So
wow.
it can feel overwhelming, but it isn't in reality. Like, you
Yeah,
just
schools are
sort of,
usually pretty good. Usually, I
yeah.
mean, I've never heard of schools kind of leaving you in the lurch. We've managed to collar Freya, who is there and eager to talk to us. Freya, how are you doing? It's been a while.
Hey, can you hear me?
Loud
Oh,
and clear, coming in from Hanoi, or are you
no,
somewhere else
I'm
at the
currently
moment?
in Siem Reap in Cambodia on holiday. So,
Of course
of
you are.
course, I mean, that's one of the perks of international teaching, right? Travel.
Absolutely. Well, what is it that what kind of piqued your interest? Because I know that I've been kind of poking at you to speak, because I think your story is sort of, well, I think you are very interesting, and having met you and talked to you as well, you've done a lot in the international arena.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting what both of you were saying about motivation. I think if you are looking to move abroad, it's about why are you looking to move abroad? And some people will do it for the money, some people will do it for the travel, some people will do it for the opportunities, some people will do it to escape the UK system, which has become really, really difficult for so many people. So for me, initially with Italy, it was because I love Italy, and I still love Italy completely and miss it. Vietnam was slightly different in that I was choosing an opportunity, really, both in terms of professional and personal. So professional, we were looking at a startup school, brand new school, which is a really interesting proposition, but also personally, I've never been to Asia before, so it gave me the opportunity to come to Asia and find out more about Asia. So I think that motivation thing is super important, as you were saying.
Yeah, and I mean, I've sort of closely followed on Twitter. You've been doing all sorts, because again, where you are, I suppose in Vietnam, you can, certainly those Southeast Asian countries, you can do relatively easily, if my geography has not failed me completely.
Definitely. I mean, Hanoi is such a great place because you can fly to Malaysia, to Thailand, to Cambodia, to Japan, to Hong Kong, to Singapore. So the opportunities for travel, if that's the motivation, are huge. I think it's really interesting listening to what you guys say about the differences between Europe and Saudi. And I think it's such an interesting area. Europe, you go to Europe, I think, probably more for the experience. You definitely don't go for the money so much.
No.
But it's such a beautiful place to live. Obviously, it's harder now post Brexit, and I think that's something that people have to be mindful of. And I think I'll probably end up eventually back in Europe, but Asia's great as well for the money and the experience as well.
And just in terms of just kind of a couple of things that we've touched on, just in terms of you getting set up in Hanoi, because again, I mean, I have been, but years ago, but it's quite difficult to navigate. There's a lot happening. How did school support you with your initial setup?
Yeah, they were awesome. I mean, we have such a great HR team, so they were supportive, from the get-go. We had a WhatsApp sort of set up, and they sort of guide you through the entire process in terms of what's needed. And, they'll give you a list of things that you have to supply, and you supply them, and then they'll sort out their end in terms of, dealing with the Vietnamese kind of systems and structures and so forth. We do get a housing allowance here, and I think it's really interesting again what you both were saying about packages and looking at what the packages offer very, very carefully. So that was really helpful. We do get an annual flight allowance, we do get medical, so there's a lot of perks there as well.
Yeah, and it's I mean, I'm always very intrigued to see what you're going to do next. I mean, you've only just started there, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I say, it's super exciting because it's a brand new school. So I'm going to be here for a few years. I do think I'll probably end up back in Europe at some point. I do love Europe. I think it's a beautiful place to be, but it is harder to get into now. But yeah, definitely here for a few years, exploring Asia and helping my school establish itself.
Fantastic. And we miss you in Europe, but of course I know that you're absolutely living, I know it's naff to say, but living your best life. I mean, it's great, and I hope it continues for you. And please continue hanging out in our space this evening. We love having you.
Loving listening to you both. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Freya. We've also got Alexandra, who's here and been very patiently waiting. I'm
Hi there.
hoping. Hello, how are
Hi
you?
there. Very good, thank you. Nice to listen to you.
Nice to have you. I think Daisy's still with us. Daisy, are you still?
I am.
hanging out?
Sorry, I am. Yeah, I'm just listening. Sorry.
I suppose. I mean, what piqued your interest, Alexandra? What did you want to add this evening?
Well, I heard your stories, moving from the UK in the last 3-4 years, and I've been out of the UK since 2011, so it's been a while. And perhaps, I left the UK with my partner. We're both teachers, my wife, and we kind of experienced the whole teaching abroad together to begin with, and then we had a family abroad. We were first in Jordan for 4 years, and that was a fantastic experience. Loved it. And then we had a family. We had our daughter, our first daughter, in Jordan, and then moved to Prague, which and we've been in Prague for the last nearly 9 years now. So in a way, I wanted to kind of just give the family perspective. People
Yeah.
moving away.
How do you find that, with moving the kids and how have you found that they integrate with the international sort of community and moving countries?
So my eldest, she's now 10, and of course she's this doesn't happen everywhere. Outside of Europe, it happens, I think, in every single school. In Europe, you need to check if your children get places at the school, how much you have to pay, or if it's free places. And both my daughters go now. They go to our school. So my wife and I, we both work in the same school, and both girls go in different kind of key stages. And well, the eldest, she's settled in. She doesn't know anything different. She's always been in international school, international setting. She's got friends from all over the world.
Mm.
She does speak with a slight American accent. That's the only thing. But yeah, she's loving it. It's a great education abroad, private school. And
yeah, because I know
yeah.
I've got friends that I work with in Saudi, and they've brought their kids out with them, and
Mhm.
they're very sort of complimentary of the whole experience in terms of they think that their children are getting a much, not just a different education, but a wider sort of cultural experience within the international world. And certainly with accessing, like you say, having friends from all over the world and being exposed to these like different cultures and different sort of people. Do you find that, is that something you hold valuable to you? Like, it's beneficial now that your daughter's got this experience with all these different people?
Yeah, it's really beneficial. I think she loves having all these friends. She loves hearing and speaking quite a lot of languages. I'm originally Romanian. I'm British as well, so she speaks multiple languages. Being abroad as well, she has to learn the local language, and yeah, just mixing and mingling and friendships with people from all over the world. She really, I mean, obviously you can still get that in the UK to some extent, but you are
Yeah.
much more exposed in an international school, and depends where you go.
Yeah. How did you find Jordan? Because I've got friends that teach there, and they just say it's amazing.
Yeah, like I said, the first 2 years there were without children, so we had a fantastic time the first 2 years. Absolutely amazing country, beautiful. Our school was great. Facilities, again, I heard you talk about the setup. The school was incredibly helpful, helped
Yeah.
us with everything. And, we just rocked up at 11 p.m. at the airport in Amman, and the school arranged a taxi, and we actually had no idea where they were taking us to live. And it turned out to be a fantastic flat, and we lived there for a year until we found something even better. So those first 2 years were brilliant, and then we had our daughter, and again the medical care was incredible. We had such a good experience with the medical system in Jordan. It was private,
Yeah.
obviously with school paying and all that sort of stuff, but Jordan was fabulous. It was, at that time, it started to get a bit tense with
Yeah.
the Syrian conflict and all that sort of stuff. So it did feel tense at times, but we never felt unsafe. It is, again, maybe not as safe as Saudi, but is, again, a very, very safe country, Jordan, and just beautiful, and the people really friendly. We had a great time there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo the same. I think Jordan and Saudi are different, but also like Arabic hospitality is just unbelievable. They're just the friendliest people, the most welcoming people. And I think it's really, I think from a Western perspective, we don't always get the full story about what these countries are like and you know what it's like to live there. If I can just ask you, what were some of the big differences that you've experienced having been in both the Gulf and a European school? In terms of like the packages or in terms of like the moving, like what are some of those big differences between being in Prague and being in Jordan?
Well, Prague is obviously Central European, and most people want to come and live in Prague. The reason we moved to Prague was we kind of did the whole Jordan thing. We wanted to be closer to family, and just Prague turned up. In terms of the school and the experience, of course, one of the big differences is you don't get your accommodation paid for. And it depends on the school, but most countries in Europe and most schools do not provide that. So the package is different. So in terms of the school places, you need to check that if it's applicable or not. The lifestyle is different. You don't tend to, well, at least we didn't tend to spend as much time with our colleagues in Prague than we did in Jordan. In Jordan, it was much more of a group, a clique, so to speak. We used to hang out together and go on holidays and go on trips and hang out in the city and stuff. In Prague, you tend to find a lot of friends outside of school. So it's much more. It's a different setup. It's a different way of life. You live in the city. You're much more, in a way, integrated in the city than you are in the Middle East. Although we did have Jordanian friends. We used to go to their houses and hang out and all that. But it's much, it's different in Prague. It's slightly different. You're slightly more integrated in. You're one of the rest. You're not necessarily a foreigner as much. You're in a European country, Central Europe. Everyone comes and goes. It's a different feeling.
Okay, that's so interesting, because I think that like for us, like I've only ever experienced Saudi and Lucy's obviously only experienced Europe. So it's so interesting to get a perspective from somebody who's experienced both, sort of Gulf and Europe. Lucy, have I missed anything?
No, and actually, I'm so glad you asked you took that was exactly the question I wanted to ask, which was the comparison of the two, and much of my sort of European experience echoes your European experience, Alexandru, which is we're not getting quite the package deal in terms of finance, in terms of housing, etc., but in terms of kind of. No, I think it'd be disingenuous to say in terms of experiencing life in these places, because from hearing from you, Daisy, as well, it's you do in your own way, but I suppose it's you're much more kind of less enclosed sort of day to day in Europe, in that you can just blend in. It is quite easy to join a running club or go out on dates, but read into that what you will, and things like that, as a really bad example. But yeah, joining sports clubs, just kind of being part of day-to-day stuff.
But I think that is probably something that's worth mentioning, because in the Gulf, dating is very difficult and you have to be very careful.
For sure.
And I think that if you're a single person moving to the Gulf, so my future husband won't mind me saying, I was absolutely not, because we weren't together when I moved out to Saudi, and I was not dating, and so it wasn't even a consideration of mine. But I've got friends out there now who their reason for leaving Saudi is going to be that they want to meet somebody, because it's it's very, very difficult to do that in the Gulf. Either they're a teacher at your school or they're a teacher at one of the neighbouring schools, but actually the chances of you dating a local just because of cultural and religious belief is going to be slim to none. So, and also because of modesty laws, you are really not actually supposed to date. So it can be quite difficult. So if you are single, it's definitely something to factor in when going to the Gulf, because it can be quite difficult. I know that Dubai and the Emirates is a lot more, and Qatar is a lot more free than Saudi, but it is still definitely something to consider. I can see that Emily's requested.
Oh yeah, she's there.
I think,
Let's pop her in. There
yeah.
we go. Sure. So I don't know if it was the dating talk that piqued her interest. Alexandria, thank you, and please do pop in again if you want to add anything or say anything else. We didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, thank you.
Hi guys.
Emily, hi.
Hiya, how are you? I'm just really interested in this discussion. I came in late, so sorry. As you know, I've taught abroad, and I know a lot of, because I think Teacher Talk put out a question, and everybody had lots of positive experiences, whereas mine's quite 50-50. So I'm in Dubai, but I just thought, I know you've touched on in terms of personal development, but in terms of professional development, I find that if I stay there too long, I might be de-skilled. So I've got this fear of being a bit de-skilled in my current context. I don't know if anybody's been through something like that, or how to overcome that, or what have
So
your
I think
experiences been?
I think that's, sorry to cut you off there. I didn't mean to. That's a really, really important point. Because I know that there are a lot of people who are concerned that when if they do want to try and come back to the UK, they're not going to be on an even sort of playing field. Is that something that you've heard of, experienced, or is it just a general worry you've got?
It's something that I'm kind of currently experiencing in my current context, because I'm teaching internationally for now. And I just find the CPD isn't as good. It's quite behind. It's like Ofsted 2010, lots of admin. So it's like, I know everyone's got their views on Ofsted, but I think it's not, well, the current context of Ofsted isn't as bad as 2010 context, and just they're still using research that's kind of being debunked. So it's quite frustrating when my teaching learning philosophies aren't necessarily aligned to what they're kind of doing. So I've kind of found that I love living out there a lot, but I just find that professional development is, it's just not appeasing
It's a hard
me or
one.
satisfying me.
Emily, please note I wasn't laughing at you. It's just your sort of example there, the Ofsted reference, and the kind of the being behind. I'm laughing at that because I resonate with that too. And certainly, I don't know if Daisy is the same. I mean, my CPD, I've gone and found it myself, and I'm fortunate, as are you, in the sense that we have Teachers Talk Radio and things like that do give us access to CPD. But of course, not everybody knows about that, and it's not kind of, we're trying to put it out there as much as we can. Shameless plug there for TTR. But I have definitely experienced that. In fact, the only kind of, bizarrely of all things, the only kind of serious CPD I've had has been Lego robotics training. But aside from that, a lot of it has been online, or I've had to actually physically go and take myself to places on my dime. So where I met Freya was at a conference that her school was hosting. Where I met Dan, same thing. So I have had to do a bit of it out of my I've had to kind of do it off my own back, which is frustrating, but I don't know how we kind of go about that. But I found, and again, this might be a disparity between European international schools and international schools in the Gulf, or indeed the UAE. Our facilities are not that great, and I shouldn't say this too loudly, but it's certainly you know, given that these are private schools, they're not sort of all singing or dancing. But I suspect that's not the case for you, Daisy.
Oh no,
Yeah, no,
that's the case for me. Is that the
yeah,
case for
no.
you, Daisy?
No, I have to say my school is all singing or dancing. My school is, in terms of resources and in terms of the actual school itself, is very very modern and very well equipped. What I will say is that as a science teacher, it can be very difficult. I have to be very creative, as there are quite a lot of the sort of things that we would normally find in a chemical store that you can't get in Saudi. So we have to be quite creative in that front. CPD wise, my school is very forward thinking in the sense that we are a BSME school, so we're a British school of the Middle East, and we have Penta inspections every 2 years, which are very similar to an Ofsted. And so we are, you know, my CPD, I run CPD within school. I do CPD on evidence informed practice, and all of the HODs are expected to have an area of expertise, and there is a CPD budget for us to access. Saying that, I know that a lot of my friends who teach internationally have the same concern as Emily, and that they don't have access to that, and that especially if they are early career teachers, or you know, only a couple of years in, that can be quite overwhelming in the sense of, you know, just not really having the same kind of access to the support and the training that they would have in the UK. And I definitely think it is such an important point, because it can be really difficult and it can be very expensive. Like, I went to a conference last year, and again, I had to pay for that myself. And my school has a CPD budget, but it's only for in-house. So to go anywhere external, I had to pay for that. So it is difficult.
Most definitely. Well, speaking of CPD and CPD opportunities, our current sponsor is John Catt Educational. So if you are looking to enhance your CPD, and Emily, this might be an opportunity for you to get some books in and have a look at some things you might want to read in the new year by using our discount, which is JCTTR2324. I've certainly got my eye on a few things that I'm having a look at, and I believe that discount code does work internationally. I'm just looking for a nod from the powers that be. I think it does. So wherever you are, you should be able to utilize that. Was that a thumbs up from HB? I think it was. So that's good. So yes, so do go and have a look on John Catt's website. There are thousands upon thousands of different titles from all areas of education, and that discount code again is JCTTR2324. So yes, we've covered a lot already so far, Daisy. I feel like we're on a roll.
Yeah. Yeah,
I should also remind people that you can interrupt us at any point. We've had a few speakers on already. I know Freya popped in for a chat. Alexandria and Emily have all popped in to have a thought. I can see Zoe is here, and Zoe has been a guest on one of my previous shows, certainly to do with teachers losing their voices, and she gave me some wonderful voice exercises that I need to get back in the habit of doing. I can see Mr. Green is here as well. So Mr. Green, if you want to pop in and share any of your wisdom, I'm not quite sure where you're based, but I can see what looks like the pyramids in the background of your photo. So I don't know if it's just a snap from travels or whether that is indeed where you are based. I know I've had colleagues who have lived in Egypt previously, and they absolutely loved that. And then I think they then went to Slovakia, and now I believe they are, well, no, now I know that they are with us. Zoe, I've poked her enough that she wants to talk to us, Daisy, so that's great. Evening to you, Zoe. How are you doing? She needs to unmute herself, I think. Zoe! I'm hoping she'll, no?
Okay. So I was gonna say, I'm sure she'll pop up in a sec. It's okay.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say, if we're thinking about potentially new international teachers and people who see the headline of this and click on and have a listen and think, I might want to do that, what would be your top pieces of advice for people who are thinking about it?
Do your research.
Yeah.
And I know that's kind of a very broad and almost actually unhelpful thing to say, but I mean, unpack that for hours, but in broad strokes, yeah, I mean, do your research from top to bottom.
Yeah, I think that I would obviously, I would 100% echo that. I think that definitely having your why. Oh, Emily, yes, let's.
Oh no, I was just
What would
gonna
your
echo
advice
the
be?
exact same thing, Daisy. I was just gonna say, just know like what you're out there for. So if it's to save, then pick a country that will enable you to do that. So Saudi and Qatar are much more better than somewhere like Dubai, for example, to save. If it's you need a bit of a break, then maybe Dubai. If it's
Yeah.
you want professional development, then I would consider maybe just staying in the UK, or looking somewhere that does that. So it's as you were about to say, Daisy, remembering your why, like have that in mind, and then go from there.
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely think that like Lucy says about doing your research, it's so important to, because I think that, if I said to a random teacher, "Oh, do you want to teach in Saudi Arabia?" They'd be like, "No." And then if I started to unpack it and be like, okay, well, this is what they're going to offer you, and this is what you can actually do here, and this is what, you are a 25-minute internal flight to Dubai, and we all got offered very cheap tickets to the Qatar World Cup, and and Bahrain is a 30-minute drive away, where if you're inclined, like Lucy, to have a bowl of gin, you can do so in Bahrain. And we also have tropical beaches, and it is hot all year round. And if you are somebody who is very much into scuba diving, then the whale sharks breed at the beach, which is 15 minutes away, and you can go diving. And if I started to really sort of unpack Saudi Arabia, I really I would advertise it for anybody. I would say it's please don't write it off because of what you think you know, and on the same breath, please don't agree to go to a school because of what you think you know about the country, because visiting and living there, which I'm sure Lucy will attest to in regards to Portugal, visiting on holiday and living there and working there are two very different things. So again, I've just said, oh, the weather's great all year round. It is, but you do need to consider the fact that you are going to have to teach when it's 48 degrees. And it's 48 degrees morning, noon, and night. It doesn't cool down in the nighttime. It is hot all the time. And so if I mean, I am Welsh, and I do not cope well in don't ask how I ended up in Saudi Arabia. I actually can't stand the heat. And I do spend from March to June inside. I stay inside in the aircon. I run to Starbucks, get a nice coffee, and I run back. Because it is exceptionally hot. But so doing your research goes both ways. Australia has got an incredible advertising campaign for that. But again, just know where you're going, and definitely make sure that you've researched the school and the country before you just sort of rock up and think I've heard many, I won't say horror stories, but things that have gone wrong for people in Dubai, for example, financially. Just in the same way as if you moved into London, you're probably going to have financial concerns. It's not all sunshines and rainbows. We have to make sure that we know where we're going, and that you're going for the right reason for the country that you're going to.
For sure. Your fellow Welshman Mikey was laughing along with you then.
Can't agree more. It's the international you've just said the website and I can't remember what it's called. The International School Review website, it's brilliant, but I would recommend people take it with a pinch of salt, because people are very quick to complain. So definitely but the LinkedIn one, that's a great piece of advice. Get on LinkedIn, find teachers who work there, and there's also a brilliant Facebook page for expats. And you can go on there and you can ask questions about and actually this year there was a girl who started at my school, who we were chatting 2 months before she started, and we only started chatting because she asked on this Facebook page about any sort of advice about Saudi Arabia, and it turns out she was coming to my school, so she was able to connect with me before she sort of got there and stuff. And I think that, yeah, using social media, using LinkedIn and Twitter, and just really trying to reach out to people who are even in the same country or the same school, just to get a bit of an idea. Most people, you know, most terrible schools have a reputation, so even people who don't go there will be able to sort of say, oh, I've heard this or I've heard that. So yeah, that's really good. That's really good advice. And so you create events for people who are moving out there?
I create events for people who are moving out there. I just want some small events in London recently, last year.
Oh, I think we've lost her.
It keeps muting. I don't know why. But basically, so I did events.
Ooh.
No.
Oh, don't know what happened there. Anyway, whilst we're just on it, so Zoe, I know you've been very patient because we lost you at one point. So but you've been very patiently waiting in the background as well. Are you able to chat now too?
Yes, I think it's working.
Yeah, it's working. I can hear you.
Yeah.
It just kept dropping out, and I might have said a few curse words to my phone. Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, thank God for that. Really interesting actually is what she was just saying. It made me think we have at my school. I've been at the school now for 12 years. Sorry, it's my son in the background annoying the cats. We've had a massive staff turnover in that time, and a lot of it's to do with the expectations of what it is to teach in Monaco. You're not living in Monaco. Our salaries aren't high enough to be able to afford the 27,000 a month rent. And some people have come down sort of a bit disappointed to not have that lifestyle. And exactly as you were saying as well before about dating, there's not much of a dating scene unless you end up with an expat. And so people have come and gone, and we've lost some really fantastic teachers who've been so lucky. A lot of them have actually come back to the UK or moved to Europe or moved actually to the Middle East and gone on to have incredible careers. But it's interesting. So I sort of now permanently see myself as being here. Yeah. I'm not from the UK originally. I'm from Guernsey, and I did spend 10 years in the UK, so I feel like I did my time, mainly with university, but 5 years of that teaching. And since I've left, although listening to how you were talking about your work in Gallery, and I'm thinking, oh God, I feel really guilty for doing all that work this morning during my holidays. I find my work-life balance is worse here.
Yeah,
it's partly my choice, I think, but also the job role that I have now. I oversee the performing arts. I create all of our events, and we recently held a wonderful Christmas concert at the Fairmont Hotel, which, you know, I've got sorted out. Right, it's going to cost 13,000 euros for the night. What can I do to make sure we cover the costs and all of that? And I do all of that on top of my teaching. And so I find that that's more time consuming than the teaching itself. But I actually love that side. So, you know, even I'm thinking, right, if I leave my job here, can I go into events management? Is there enough going on in Monaco? Yes, there is. So it's been, I came down for the motivation of, it was the job.
Yeah.
It was a very big pay cut coming down, to be completely honest.
Okay.
About 20,000 euros a year difference. But at the time, living costs were a lot cheaper. Food was a lot cheaper. You can pop over to Italy in 15 minutes and do your shopping in Ventimiglia for a quarter of the price of what it is here in the south of France.
Mm.
And it was allowed me to teach both music and drama in both primary and secondary, which I could never do in the UK.
So your whole motivation for being there is it's a job that wouldn't really exist in the UK.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The sunshine and being by the sea does help.
Yeah.
As an Islander, I was stuck in Cambridge for 10 years, and that eventually drove me insane.
Yeah.
It is interesting. Sorry. Daisy, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I would echo that. I mean, I have seen that I mean, even I have opportunities that I wouldn't have in the UK. Like, so I only teach year 11 and A level. And that just doesn't happen in the UK. You always end up with some year 7 or year 8 group, which I make no bones about saying I do not like. And I can't bear it. And so, you know, I get much more flexibility, but I also, the absolute highlight of my week, because we're a through school teaching from pre-reception through to A level, the highlight of my week is I get to go and do book corner with reception. And yeah, oh god, it's so great. And I get to go downstairs and I get to sit with a bunch of 4 and 5-year-olds and read a book for an hour. And it's the highlight of my week. And again, something I would never get the experience to do in the UK. And I get to help run science club for the year 2s and things like that. And so there is a lot more opportunity for roles that don't really exist in the UK. It's very segregated between primary and secondary in the UK, whereas in the international schools, it's often through, or they're very closely partnered.
Yeah,
It's
very
it's a
much.
weird one.
Yeah, I was going to say that's very, very similar to here. And one of the things that, I mean, I don't know, obviously, other international school experiences, but our PTA is amazing. I have never known a PTA to be so involved in the school,
Yeah.
and so willing to help out. Like, I'll be honest with you, I completely had a nervous breakdown in the lead up to Christmas. We had our school play on the Monday, Tuesday, Lambda Showcase on the Wednesday, and then the following on the Monday we had this big Christmas concert, and that meant working 7 days a week with rehearsals at the weekends. And I live here alone without any family, and my 7-year-old, who's such a good boy, he had to just come to all of the rehearsals with me, so I can't afford the €25 an hour for childcare.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just one of those very tough mornings, and the head of our PTA saw me having a moment, shall we say. It wasn't a very pretty look, but it happened. And she just booked me a nanny for 2 weeks. She paid for it all.
Wow.
To come to my house 6 o'clock every morning, so I could leave at 7, to be there to cook dinner, take my son to school, do the cleaning, like everything. I mean, I felt like I was a queen. It was amazing. And just because she said you give so much to our kids, it's my job to give back.
Yeah,
And
I would echo that. I mean, in Saudi, the way they view teachers. So this is a funny story that I tell everybody. But so in the UK, I mean, God, it was a battle like every day.
Yes.
But in Saudi, I'd been there about 2 months, and there was a little boy, and he was he was making little like sort of blue tack paper balls and flicking them. And in their perspective, I told him off. In my perspective, I barely grumbled compared to what I'd had to do in the UK. But I sort of, you know, it was very much a stop doing that. You're driving me crazy. Do that again, and I'm going to send you out. And the next morning, he arrived with his mom with a bouquet of flowers, a box of Arabic pastries, and a handwritten apology for his behaviour. Now, I hadn't even registered that had happened, you know, because my behaviour management was on a completely different magnitude coming from the UK. And I didn't even know what to say. And she was like, "He will never do that again. I'm very sorry. We respect you, and we respect your time." And, you know, and I was just blown away by it. And they are, I have to say, in the international community, the level of support for teachers is much higher than in the UK. You know, we are villainized in the UK to an extent, and you just don't see that really. In certainly in my school, and as you say, Zoe, you know, the level of gratitude they have is just huge. It's just, they are so grateful.
yeah, it really does make a difference. Like, even if I've been out Christmas shopping with my son, or, you know, all by myself, it's always, hello, come over, and, you know, they're all so kind. But then on the flip side of that, I found, when we went to lockdown, I mean, my school did an incredible feat getting everybody online learning, and we were the most successful school in Monaco for handling it. And we then have grown by 300 students since then.
Yeah.
So, well done to our school, but classrooms are not getting any bigger. So the sort of the difficulty that's then come to that is parents feel as though we're contactable 24/7. And I am one of those people who does have email on my phone just because
No,
I
Zoe.
can't switch off, but that's my issue. That's my issue. It's also a way for me to send things to remind myself to do. I'll leave myself a little voice note and, it automatically types it and sends it to me. But I will wake up most mornings with 7 or 8 emails that have been sent overnight. I even had one yesterday. Oh, hi, Miss Gina, I'd really like to play the violin. Can you organise lessons? Okay. It's Christmas, but all right, let me see what I can do. I didn't reply. I stopped myself from that. But it's sort of this, and the majority obviously of parents are business people or sports people, and they're always traveling, and they're so used to keeping, being able to just get things sent when they're thinking about it. And I try not to reply outside of school hours. We don't have that law. In France, they do. In Monaco, they don't. I'm very used to getting emails at 11 o'clock at night. It's normal. But that's part of the job is frustrating, because I don't want parents to think that, yes, we are the teachers, but we're not at your beck and call 24/7.
It is true. I'm sorry, we've just lost Daisy for the moment. Hopefully, we will get her back. But Zoe, I think the boundaries thing in international school is a bit of a weird one, because they're not in the same way. Because yes, in the UK, I definitely saw parents out and about, but I have parents at school who I have taught both their kids, who I would consider friends, who I have gone for coffee with and things like that. But in the UK, you just wouldn't hear of it. We also have these things called parent dinners, which I think the new head is trying to phase out, where the idea is that you as the teacher get taken out for dinner by your kind of class parents, and you kind of sort of are on ceremony. I mean, that would never happen in the UK, and it's almost kind of that uncomfortable kind of thing of at what point do you say no?
On the 10th bottle of wine.
See, some people don't have an issue with it. I mean, I'm sort of on the fence about that one, but yeah, it is. I think you do have to guard yourself and your boundaries as well, and take those emails off your phone.
I know. I need it right. Maybe that's my New Year's resolution. By the 2nd of January, they'll be back on.
Well, yeah. We have sadly lost Daisy to I think there's a storm sweeping through Wales, and her Wi-Fi seems to have gone kaput. So we may get her back, we may not. Zoe, thank you so much for your contribution. Please do stick around until we haven't got that much longer. But I've seen we've got, I think it was Munissa.
Yeah, Munissa, yes.
Munissa, sorry, I'm
my
glad
Wi-Fi
I
was
got
very
that right.
bad. I don't know, it just completely cut.
Sorry, so we need to kind of, I can't remember what
LinkedIn.
what point we brought you in over, but
we were saying
okay,
connecting
fantastic.
through social media, because Facebook is very big out in the Middle East as well. So Facebook groups are very good to connect with different teachers.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And I think it's platforms like X and all of that, and shows like this, we can definitely get the word out there and help sort of encourage more people towards also maybe towards places that they would otherwise not consider. I certainly even as an international teacher myself have learnt a lot about places that had never even really crossed my mind prior to this evening.
Same. It's interesting hearing the different experiences people have had.
Most definitely, and I hope that you've taken something away from it as well. And thank you for fighting your way back in to talk to us. I think it's and I think it's really important. And do come back and talk to us again. Just before we wrap things up this evening, I should remind you once again that our sponsor is John Catt Educational, and they publish a wide variety of educational books, publications, all sorts of bits and pieces. So in keeping with our sort of theme of New Year's resolutions, and maybe considering that move abroad, maybe considering branching out and reading something in the educational sphere that you haven't before, we still have a discount for you, which is JCTTR 2324. So please do put that to good use. I'm not sure for how much longer we have it, so hurry. I forgot to treat myself over Christmas, so I might treat myself in January, particularly since it's my birthday in January. So I'm one of those poor people that gets lumbered with a near Christmas birthday, but So it's one of those things. Anyway, what I would like to say is, first of all, thank you so much to all of you who have listened in this evening, and to all of our contributors as well. You're all still here. Zoe, I saw you unmute yourself there. Did you want to say something before I wrap things up?
That was purely by accident. I'm so sorry.
No, gosh, don't be. I just thought, oh gosh, I don't want to cut you off before you finished saying what you want to say. But we have had, oh gosh, I think of too many contributions to mention. We've had Freya, we've had Zoe, we've had Alexandra, we've had Nisa, we've had Emily come in and have a chat. So it's been absolutely wonderful. And of course, my wonderful co-host Daisy, who unfortunately I think is having to nail shut her windows at the moment. I think there's a named storm coming in. I can't remember what name they've gone with this time in the UK, but they like to call them weird things like Gertrude. So it's probably something like that. So I hope, if nothing else, that we have given you at least some insight into the pros and indeed some of the cons when it comes to international teaching. I'm certainly looking to follow this chat up in January with some shows more directed towards kind of certain locations and the pros and cons with each of those. So look out for those as well. Mr. Tom Hopkins-Burke, what else have we got to look forward to this Christmas time?
You should know the answers to this, Lucy.
I do, but I feel you wanted to leap in and do them yourselves. I do.
No worries. Tomorrow,
them.
3 p.m, we have the return of Ed Finch and Tabor Payne Cook with a Christmas social. I've just listened to it today before it's released tomorrow, and it's absolutely fantastic. We've got some musical interludes. We've got some fantastic chat about hopes of 2024. So that's going to be released tomorrow, 3 p.m. UK time. 29th is the Friday. We know exactly what that is because it is the return of Staff Room 101. Yay! It's me and Nathan and you, Lucy, and anybody else who wants to call in.
I'm coming too.
We talk about the things we want to remove from teaching as we go into 2024. It could be nativity plays, it could be Amanda Spielman, it could be just about anything. And then on the 31st, Lucy, you know full well because you're hosting the 2023 review. So that is available to stream on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere basically. And we've got a bumper panel of TTR hosts, and we're going to be reviewing the year in education and looking ahead as well to some predictions for 2024 as well. So that's what we've got lined up now for the rest of 2023. This is show 1 of a 4-show spectacular.
Oh yeah, and it's been fantastic. Thank you for that, Tom. I appreciate it. So please do continue listening into all of those shows, particularly as I am popping up in nearly all of them, apart from Ed and Toby's. I was going to try and sneak in there, but they were having none of it. So you can but try. Anyway, this has been absolutely fantastic. Please do. If you have any questions to follow up, then you are welcome to get in touch with us through all the usual platforms. And I will see you for Staff Room 101 on Friday. And in the meantime, have a think about some of the things that you'd like to put in the teaching bin, as it were. Have a lovely rest of the day. I'm going to go and find if there's any Christmas pudding left. See you later.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.